A few days ago, I took the car for its retest and it passed, which is great. A couple of minor advisories, nothing too serious. As you can probably tell from my voice, unfortunately I got hit by flu, which I'm just getting over now, and it's rather slowed me down on getting jobs done. One of the things that was a bit strange when I picked the car up was it sounded terrible. Like, as though it had dropped a cylinder, and it was down on power, and just awful. The garage, as far as I'm aware, didn't do anything to cause this. I was waiting while they did the retest, and it went in perfectly fine, so I was a little bit confused. Let me demonstrate. I can barely get it to idle. It's yeah, it's not great. But I think I found the culprit for this, because one of the things that you check when something is running bad like this, it's very lumpy, the engine's rocking quite a bit, it does sound like it's running on 3, is you pull the spark leads off one at a time to see if you've got one that's gone down for whatever reason. And I got quite a shock off one lead. So yeah, maybe I should have used some insulated pliers or something instead of my bare hands, but I wasn't really thinking at the time, I just wanted to figure it out. And I pulled this one from the Princess, which are a known good set of leads, put this on the car, and it ran better. So I think I've got some leads breaking down. There is another thing that you can check as well, so let's go and have a look at that in the engine bay, and yeah, because this sounds awful. The other thing you can try are these spark tester things, and these are just a generic Sparkrite brand one, and the clear plastic body has a gap in it so the spark jumps across the gap and is visible. They just plug onto your spark lead, and they just plug onto your spark plug, plug your lead into it, and then you just start the car. And it lets you see very easily whether or not you're getting a spark on all your cylinders. Not sure exactly how well it's showing up on camera, but in person at least, this one is a very weak spark compared to the rest, and that's the lead that I replaced, which is showing up as being quite bad. We'll try it again with the one off the Princess, so I've just swapped that far lead over there that had the weak spark. And you can tell there is a slight improvement in the idling, and the spark itself is a lot more visible than it was before. So I'm pretty sure the issue here is that the spark leads have just decided after the MOT to give up. I have some new spark leads and some new plugs to go on. The ones in the car are old champions, thank goodness knows how old they are. And the reason I never did this is there were so many other jobs on the car, I just left this one alone because there wasn't a problem with it. I'm feeling a bit better, so let's get on with the spark plugs and leads. The first thing to do is we need to gap the spark plug,
and in the book it recommends between 0.9 and 1mm depending on which type of plug you've got. I don't have Unipart or Champion style plugs because they're not really a thing anymore, so I've got NGKs and I'm just gapping these to 0.9. Top of your spark plug you've got your little piece of metal there and your little piece of metal there, and you want to be able to get your feeler gauges in so that it's a loose fit, so it's just touching both as you move it through. I've done that on all of them, so I know that that's going to be pretty close to the gap that we need. That's not too tight, which is good. That certainly can't have been helping things at the moment. I'd say they were definitely due a change, and this sort of thing might be why the emissions have been high as well, if we're not getting a very good spark. I wonder how long they've been in there. Let's pull the rest and see what we've got. Don't normally have these little wire tidies when I order spark plug leads, so that was a nice thing to have. I mean, it's not like they're going to flop around on anything down there, but it's just nice to tidy them up. And these are the plugs that came out, and yeah, they've been in there a while. They're all quite black, so it's probably running quite rich. This one's quite oily. I'm not sure why. The car doesn't really consume much oil. No more than I'd expect from an A series, so I don't know. Maybe it's just been like that a very long time. Something to keep an eye on. Anyway, I'm going to tidy up all this mess and we'll start it up and we'll see if that's improved things. The other thing I noticed was when I was taking the king lead off, it was a little bit loose on the distributor cap, which certainly won't have been helping. The leads that I took off here, now then, you can see there 1220. I think that's the date code, so I think that's December 2020, which probably means these were replaced just before I got the car. It's the fairly new Halfords logo on there as well, and the leads don't feel terrible, but I don't know. I feel like replacing them is probably a sensible idea, especially since when I was checking them initially, as I mentioned before, this one zapped me. So there was something amiss somewhere there, because you shouldn't be able to get zapped by the lead itself, that's insulated. Yeah, let's start the car up, see how it behaves, and hopefully it's running a bit better now than it was. It's a marginal improvement, but it's not the fix I was hoping for. It's still not right. That's a bit concerning. I'm going to take it for a bit of a run to warm it up and just see if it clears up. Sometimes that does happen, sometimes it doesn't. Right, well, I can say that the leads and the plugs improved matters. I've got a bit more power back that I'd lost, and the problem has now become a little bit more intermittent. You can see the engine isn't wobbling quite as much as it was, which is good, but sometimes it's like it intermittently drops the cylinder. That makes me think this might be an ignition issue. So it's probably things like a breaking down coil, a worn out distributor cap, a worn out rotor arm, those sorts of things. Before I go firing the parts cannon at this, I'm going to let everything cool down and I'm going to give it a compression test. Because that one oily plug makes me wonder if maybe, purely out of spite, this car's blown its head gasket. This might be a user error situation. You can see here we've got a nice, good, even spark across the board, which is brilliant. And when I pulled this one off, it was barely even touching. That was weird. I don't know if that's going to show up. There was a glitch on the screen from sparkling. Anyway, when I pulled this one off this plug, it was barely touching. So maybe that had just not been pushed on all the way. It does sound a lot better now though. Yeah, I might just have not put that plug lead on properly. How embarrassing. Time to do the oil change on the Maestro. I've already done this once before, I didn't record it, and the intention was just to do it again because of what we found in the rocker box. And I was given a big box of oil filters, which is likely more than anybody will ever need for this car, which is fantastic. So those will mostly be going with the car. If they're the same one as the Princess, I've got a feeling they might be. I'm going to keep a couple back for myself. Spiders have been busy as well. It's that time of year. Every day you come out and it's covered in webs. But I'm going to use an AC Delco one, because why not? Everything under here is going to get it clean. It's all covered in road grime and dust, but we've got the oil filter there to remove. Nice easy access. And I've had to jack the car up and put it on a stand because the sump sits just a little bit too low for my drain pan. But the drain plug is here on the side of the sump, and yeah, something up there is leaking oil. I'm not sure what. That's something for the next owner to investigate. I'm not digging that deep into this. I also think that the blowing exhaust noise is actually the join up there. It looks a little bit sooty in places, so I'm wondering if the clamps have just slackened off a tiny bit. So at some point I shall see about tightening those up to seal that up. I think that's where that noise is coming from. There's not much oil in a Maestro. It takes 2.7 litres when you're doing the filter change. So what comes out of here, I know it's going to be black, but there shouldn't be too much of a worry here. Hopefully we can catch this on camera. It is a 19mm socket on this. Oh, that's quite loose actually. That was a surprise. Hoping this doesn't overshoot the pan, but we'll see. Yeah, it's quite black. There's nothing on the sump though, no metal bits, so that's always good. Almost disaster. Now the car's already a little bit warmed up, but it's not hot, and that helps the oil to come out a little bit easier. Yeah, that's very black. Right, well, we'll let that finish draining, and let's take off the filter. Old filter off, minimal oil spillage. Because the filter sort of is upside down, you do run the risk of oil spilling out. So, you know, I've got a couple of drops here and there, but there's not much you can really do about it. That's off now, so we are ready to install the new one. And that's a very noisy helicopter over there. Yeah, but before you put your new one on, I'm just going to run a smear of fresh oil around here. I'm not going to fill this up with oil, simply because if I fill it up with oil, it's all going to come straight back out, because you have to put it on like that. and yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without making a mess. So you don't need very much oil on here. I've just dipped my finger in the jug and that's enough, and it just stops this from getting stuck, so it's a bit easier to remove. Well, that one's not correct. That's too large a bore. Let's see what else we've got. Well, I had a look in the box. There's a few different brands there, and they're all the wrong size, and everything else in here are these AC Delco X79s, and they do have Maestro listed, but it's 1600, and they're all that one, so they're all wrong for the Maestro, for this Maestro, because this is a 1300. However, they are correct for the Princess, so I am sorted for oil filters basically for the rest of my life now. The only one that's listed for 1300 is Montego with oil cooler, and I'm not sure which engine that is, but it's clearly not compatible with what I've got here, so I'm going to have to order some more oil filters. Which is great to find out when you've just evacuated all the oil out your car. I also learned that I don't have any crush washers, so I'm going to have to order some of those too. Ah, well done me. The thing is, as well, I actually couldn't see that this was the wrong thread until after I'd removed the old filter. And because the old filter was quite stuck, not really sure why, I had to put the screwdriver through it because I can't find my old filter wrench, because it doesn't matter. I've got loads. So I can't even put the old filter back on. Oh well, we'll just leave it draining. I'll make an order and we'll come back to this as soon as my new parts have arrived. After longer than I would have liked for this job, I finally have the correct oil filter. All the ones I currently have, including the first replacement I ordered, are the wrong ones, which are these with the slightly larger thread. They do, at a quick glance, look exactly the same, but this thread is much smaller, and that's the one this car takes. The other thing is, these two are actually the same height, but some of the ones that I've seen, the larger thread is slightly taller than the smaller thread. If you've got a Maestro with a 1.3 engine, find out which filter you've got and make sure you order the right one. Usually people list the thread size for this, so whichever one is the smaller one, that's probably the one you want. I've gone with a Borg & Beck, which seems to reliably be the right one these days. Of all the listings I've seen, that seems to be the right one, and that is your part number there, BF04073. And now we can put things together, because the other thing that's arrived is my new copper crush washer. And you can see in here, this is the old one here that's already crushed. You don't really want to reuse them, and that's a new one. I'll put the spare in for the next owner. I think we can safely say that the oil is well and truly drained now. It's taken me about a week to get the right oil filter for this car. Which is not how this job is supposed to go. So I'm going to button it up, and then I'm going to put some of Halford's finest in there. 2.7 litres for the Maestro, so it doesn't really take very much at all. And obviously you can't buy oil in those quantities, because of course you can't. Sump plug back in. I've just tightened it up until it's snug. I'm going to leave the drain pan under here, just in case we have a drip and I need to tighten it up a little bit more. You don't want to tighten this up too much. It's a very low torque setting on that, but I'm not getting the torque wrench out just for a sump plug. Next job is the filter, and as mentioned before, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the seal, and I'm not going to prime this because the filter lives that way up, so if I put any oil in, it's going to come straight back out again. You don't need very much, just a quick smear. It just prevents everything from getting stuck when you come to take it off next time. And again, no need to dog this up really tight. And get the oil off your hand before you tighten it up. That's always a good idea. But you just want it tight enough. And then you check on this again after a little while, just to make sure you don't need to retighten it. Next up, get some oil in there. Just let that settle through and I'll check the sump plug. I think we're good. Maestro takes 1040. Some people will tell you it takes 2050. And some people will tell you it takes 0-30. Look in your manual and that will tell you what it does take, and it takes 1040. It's about 2.5 litres. A bit more. It's about 3. Now I know we're not on the flat, so it's not going to give me an accurate reading. I just want a rough idea of if we're registering at all. There's no drips under here, so I think we can say that that's going to hold. I'll get the drain pan out because otherwise there's no space for it. And we'll get the car back down on the floor, then I'll get a proper reading from the dipstick. We're back on the flat, so let's see what we've got in. This might be hard to see. But we are just above the minimum mark, so I reckon probably another litre-ish, and we should be about where we need to be. So you can just about see we're towards the maximum line there. Incredibly hard to read. I'm not going to be able to show you on camera because I can barely see it with my eyes, but we are at the maximum mark now. So I'm going to pop the cap on, tidy all these loose things out the engine bay, and we'll start it up and see how it feels. Well, we're off choke. It's quietened down a lot. There's a bit of condensation out the exhaust. Again, it's been stood a while, and it has rained quite a bit over the last couple of days. But it's quietened down no end. The fan is on permanent at the moment. I have got a new fan switch. I'm hoping it's the right one. But overall, seems happy so far. I'm going to take it for a quick spin, and we'll see how it performs, I suppose. Well, we made it back no bother. The only casualty was the sat-nav fell off. But it is burning quite a bit of oil now, and I don't know what that's about, because it wasn't doing that before. It could just be that this oil is thinner than it's been on for a while. It's getting past the valve stem seals. I don't know. I'll investigate that a little bit, because that's rather more than I'd like it to be doing. Other than that, nothing is leaking. You know, plug under here somewhere is still fine. The oil filter's fine. I don't know. Bit of an odd one. I'm just going to suck it and see on this. I think I'll probably do a compression test, not today, there's not enough time, but yeah, I think a compression test would be sensible. I think it's probably just more likely that it's an engine on 183,000 miles and it's just a little bit warm, so it's just burning a little bit of oil. We'll see.